when the trailer for the new Naughty Dog game came up, I almost thought it was a grown-up Lev.
Dude,
That's what I thought too to begin with. But
I know, and I know because we're gonna get into it in a little bit, but all of these fools online talking about how ugly the protagonist in Intergalactic is, I so wholeheartedly disagree. I'm pretty sure I immediately looked over at Daniel and said audibly, "Smash."
Yeah, the complaints I've seen is like, oh, I'm so tired of girl boss characters with an attitude, and because only males are allowed to be quippy and sarcastic, apparently, And the other problem is, because she's not a walking sex doll, and they want all their female characters to be soft and delicate damsels in distress, or if they are action heroes, they have to be like Ripley or Laura Croft.
Listen, they just came out with a remake for Chainsaw Lollipop. Like, go play that and shut up. Like,
and you know what? I genuinely like that for that game, but I'm not playing it for down bad reasons. No. It's just fun.
I'm not playing a Gooner game, brother. Like, that's just not me. Like, I don't know.
I put it up on Gamers Got a Game. I was like, because apparently a bunch of weak people are frightened by chicks with shaved heads. I was like,
yeah, that's the other thing too. People are spreading misinformation and claiming that the character is non-binary or goes by they, them, and that's never established or confirmed in the trailer one way or the other. They're just making assumptions based on a haircut. And that is so ignorant.
And equally at the same time, even if it was the case, so fucking what? Like, who cares? Like, it's so dumb.
And that's a good segue into the topic. Hello, everybody. We're at the topic of the episode now. And what you just heard, we were talking about the internet's backlash to Naughty Dog's new game that was announced at the Game Awards this past Thursday, Intergalactic, which we think looks good, actually.
Man, I like almost anything that Naughty Dog does, but there was no reason for any backlash on this, really.
I mean, and that's I will say, like, for me, watching the trailer, the only thing that, like, I guess I kind of took a step back on of, like, I don't know if I like that a lot was, and it's something that you go through any comment section, you'll see it, is the volume of product placement that was in it. But after sitting with it for a day or two and really, like, rethinking it, rewatching the trailer a few more times, the vibe and aesthetic that they're going for is that 80s sci-fi look, and the 80s were so prominent for product placement. Like, brands is what was in. I mean, that's why they made so much fun of it in movies like Wayne's World, is because it was such a huge pivotal part of culture in the 80s. And so again, I was a little like perturbed about it. Like, watching it for the first time, I'm like, it seems like a lot. And like Adidas, Porsche, like, Sony obviously, like, no duh, but like, and like that was my initial like knee jerk of like, oh, that's so much. But after saying like, no, it makes sense though. Like, it fully makes sense why it would be here.
I was actually getting more of a Guardians of the Galaxy vibe when they were when they were showing all that,
especially the music.
Yeah, because I was like, okay, the music there. I was like, so it's maybe a mix of Guardians of the Galaxy and like the older like Alien movies. Because I was like, okay, we're in space, girl, everything going on like that. I was getting like the 80s horror vibe, but I was like, okay, this is more Guardians of the Galaxy. When I heard that music, when I saw those placements, I was like, this is cheesy, but it's being done on purpose. What are you doing here? And then I saw by the creators of Uncharted and Jack and Dexter, I was like, okay, so we got Naughty Dog behind that. I see what they're going for here.
Yep. Well, and it's not uncommon for them. The Last of Us games have PS3s littered all over the people's apartments.
I mean, play on a PlayStation and Uncharted 4 too.
Yeah, and actually in the very beginning of Uncharted 4, you literally play through a level of Crash Bandicoot as Nathan Drake, like, playing it on his couch at home. Yeah. Very Inception-y. So, Nick, you may remember in our pre-Game Awards episode, I predicted that Neil Druckmann's unannounced project would be here at the Game Awards, and it looks like I was right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I predicted that as one of the announcements. However, here's the funny thing: when when they saved it for the very end, like one more surprise thing, because Jeff did his like we got one more thing for you, and then the last thing wasn't that big of a deal, but then he did, they did the game of the year, and then I was like, he might have one of those, ooh, we got one more surprise drop for you at the end things, and then he did, and when it came up, I was like, I wonder if this is that Neil Druckmann thing. And then I saw that it was in space. And my immediate thought was, oh, no, this can't be Naughty Dog. Not enough jungle. Well, I ate crow almost immediately.
Yeah. We don't know. Maybe there's jungles in space.
Well, when she went down to the planet, and pulled out the sword and started fighting that thing, I was like, oh, there's the jungle. Yeah, because like I can't think of a single Naughty Dog game that they've made, Crash Bandicoot, Uncharted, and The Last of Us, where it isn't 70% covered in vegetation.
You've got Jak 2. I think would be the only thing that wasn't like fully jungle.
Oh yeah, Jak and Daxter. Yeah. That's right. But Jak and Daxter is an island. They're on an island.
Yeah, then that's the thing. Like Precursor Legacy, yes. 2 is mostly in city, and then 3 is like a mixture of like city and wasteland. I think that's really is like the only other time I can think of that they like weren't primarily jungle.
So I'm glad that you brought up the product placement too, because I actually have a very interesting theory. So Scott Telford, the head of What Culture, and specifically What Culture Gaming, I've been interacting with them a lot. They read my questions on their podcast a lot. We've had like a pretty interesting parasocial relationship going on. So he posted on Twitter that he has a theory about Intergalactic, and I'd like to read it because I think this is very intriguing. He's one of the most media literate people I've ever listened to talk about video games, so I find his takes on things to be very intriguing, even when I disagree with them. He hated Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. He hated Hellblade 2. I liked both of those, even though I have some caveats. I do have complaints about them, but overall like them. And I have the same complaints he did. They just didn't bother me as much. So I still think he's one of those people I can disagree with and still highly respect what he's saying, because he's just that good at wording it. His thoughts on Intergalactic are this: you're supposed to be uncomfortable with brands and that forced song moment. The trailer opens on a quote about generations suffering while jumping 1980s culture into a bounty hunter-driven future. It has to be a comment on how never-ending this recycling of past glories in media is. Remakes, remasters, reboots, yada yada, and how trapped a lot of us feel experiencing it. After being given the bounty, Jordan looks off to the side, contemplates what she's about to fly into, and then chooses to go back to the cocoon of retro, the music, the chunky analog controls, the lights and sounds. Intergalactic, if I'm right, is specifically about piloting this version of molded youth, or a younger demographic in general, into a future where they're only armed with the tools of the past to deal with whatever lies ahead. It's about how comfortable and yet uncomfortable modern media is, and how only by meaningfully building on what came before, not regurgitating it, is how we find meaning. The planet that they travel to in the trailer resembles a Fibonacci spiral, a literal mathematical model for progress. And I'm pretty sure that the laser sword weapon she uses is inspired by a stereo equalizer too. Jordan is wielding the comforts of music, of retro culture as we know it, as a weapon to survive against an alien belief system. What do you think on that take?
I really agree with that. I mean, I watch what culture all the time, so I know exactly what you're talking about here. But I agree with that.
Did you see they did a top 20 games of the year list recently, and they put Star Wars Outlaws and Veilguard on it, and the comments are so toxic, ignoring everything else on the list but those two. It's ridiculous.
I haven't seen that yet, but I will probably see it, and that does not surprise me.
But you know what's funny? They also put Star Wars Outlaws on their top 10 most disappointing games of the year. So it's a very nuanced take, because they both love and hate it simultaneously for different reasons.
Mm-hmm. My only problem with Star Wars Outlaws was that, you take a blaster and you'd be shooting at the stormtroopers, and it would take like 4 or 5 shots to take them down. And then, but if you walked up to a stormtrooper, you could just knock him out in one hit.
Yeah.
If you sneak up behind him, I was like, okay, but I mean, that's just kind of a pet peeve, and if I had to nitpick at things, but it wasn't game breaking.
Can I jump in on the lore on this?
Yeah. Stormtroopers have shit armor.
So plastoid armor, right? It's a plastic, but it's a especially formulated plastic in the Star Wars universe that has certain properties. Mostly, it's meant to absorb blaster fire. It is not. It does not shield from concussive force.
Yep.
It'll take the plasma from a blaster a little bit, right? The whole thing with the Empire was they wanted to make something that was mass producible. It's accuracy by volume. Their whole goal is to be able to overwhelm with sheer force.
Yep. The first stormtroopers were former clone troopers.
Yes. And so barring the highly specialized units, it's mostly just this plastoid armor, which is it's just going to take blaster bolts. It's not going to take any concussive force. Same way with our troops, with a flak jacket or the sappy plates that we wear. They'll take a bullet, but if you try to shove a knife through it, you'll stab your buddy. And yeah, that's things that happen.
The Family Guy Star Wars specials, the third one, I think, actually tackled this joke in a joke where they're fighting the Ewoks and the arrows are going right through their armor, and they're like, why do we even wear this? It doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember that.
So yeah, that is pretty... They are actually patching Star Wars Outlaws to make it easier for all the people that cried about how hard the stealth is, so, And I will admit, the game does have some pretty unforgiving stealth, but it's a fucking stealth game. So, that being said, though, it is now going to be more accessible to people who don't like stealth, so I think hopefully more people will get to play it and see how underappreciated it really is. If you enjoyed the original Star Wars trilogy, it definitely harkens back to that in a lot of ways.
I am a big fan of the Star Wars Jedi games.
And it's canonical too. This game takes place between Star Wars 5 and 6, and there's even some canonical carryover in Jabba's palace in regards to that. Which is pretty cool to see. The Jedi games, Fallen Order and Survivor, are also canonical, taking place during the hunting the surviving Jedi era between 3 and 4.
I heard a rumor, I don't know if it's true, but I heard a rumor that they were considering making a Star Wars Jedi, either a movie or a series for Disney Plus with Cal. The guy
I would love to see Cal in live action. He was great in Gotham.
He was great in Shameless.
Yeah, Shameless is what I think of for him.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said that he was kind of doing Mark Hamill's career in reverse because he started as the Joker and then went to Star Wars, but Mark Hamill started as Star Wars and then moved to being the Joker.
Yeah, well, loosely the Joker it's an inspired take for sure, but they never it's
Jerome.
Yeah, Jerome. Before we get any further into this, though, I have an email I want to read from none other than Ryan with his thoughts, both positive and negative, on the overall Game Awards, and then we can just have an open discussion wherever you guys want to talk about it. So Ryan says, "Hello there, everyone. My name is RMK, and this is RMK Buried Alive Gaming." Just kidding. I hope you all are well. This was a pretty awesome event that just happened this week, and I know it's the reason everyone is talking tonight. I played some guitar. Oh, and some games won awards and others got announced, that too. The Game Awards 10th anniversary was a massive event, and while I wasn't lucky enough to attend in person like some of us, cough cough,
sorry Ryan, love you.
I did tune in to enjoy it on YouTube, and enjoy it I did. I figured I'd mention some parts that stood out to me. First, I fully support Shadow of the Erdtree being in the running for Game of the Year, and will continue to defend that stance until a category specifically for DLC/expansions gets added. And the amount of content more than justifies the addition. It wasn't just content cut from the base game in order to sell an unfinished product, but easily rivaled the experience of the base game as a whole. That being said, I'm honestly not too surprised it didn't win anything. I think it fairly lost in every category it was in to a game that deserved it more. Metaphor and Astrobot swept the show. So did Balatro.
Yes.
Astrobot winning Game of the Year was a nice surprise, and I love how upset everyone is getting about it online. While I haven't played it yet, every single person I know that did has had nothing but positives to say about it. And I mean that. Literally zero negative comments about the game from anyone I know that has actually played it. I can't wait to dig in for myself. And Ryan's a big fan of like the 3D Mario platformers on the Switch and stuff, and Astrobot is PlayStation's Mario. He's gonna love it. He said, I'm glad Rebirth got a little attention, but ultimately agree it wouldn't have deserved any of the other awards if it was in the running for. I still haven't beaten it after 80 hours of playing because it becomes such a grind just beating mini games to unlock more mini games so that I can progress the story by about an hour for every 8 hours of playtime. where I'm at right now, this is not untrue. I'll still finish, but that game does not respect your time in the slightest, which makes me sad because I feel it's still an incredibly well done game in spite of all its glaring issues. Yeah, my opinion of Rebirth is that it's a game of high highs and low lows, and because the highs are so high, the lows stand out really bad. Not to he said to not ramble. I think he meant not to ramble forever. Let's switch to announcements. Of course, I got out of my chair and screamed out of excitement when they finally revealed the release date for Silksong. Wait. That's what he said. Well, that's what I would have said if it had shown up. Sad bug noises. However, on a serious note, Dispatch looked way cool, and I'm pretty stoked on that. Kiora, The First Berserker, and Den of Wolves all made it onto my wish list. Borderlands 4 looked great. I think I'm going to need to finally play The Witcher 3 because 4 looked awesome. The new Naughty Dog game is intriguing, but I would like to see more of it before making a snap judgment. And Split Fiction seems like an awesome blend of my tastes. He said, I can't stand 21 Pilots, and unfortunately the stream was lagging pretty hard for me during Snoop, so both musical performances were fairly whatever. But the Game of the Year melody was incredible, and Flute Guy stole the show yet again.
He sure
he
did.
steals it every time.
Every fucking time.
He said, I could definitely do without the Muppets in the future. I understand what he was doing with them, but they are forever a low point for me. He said, I know a lot of people can't wait for GTA 6, but I'm glad that it didn't make an appearance. I personally have zero intent to ever buy it after how Rockstar has treated the last few games they put out, dropping all story DLC for GTA 5 in order to push shark cards, letting Red Dead Redemption Online die because they wanted to sell shark cards. The mere existence of shark cards. It's like they only look at their consumer base as a bunch of wallets, especially if the rumors of the $150 price point for the base game for 6 is true. There are much more.
That will not happen.
Yeah, there are much.
I don't think it's going to.
There are much more.
150. That's a hard ask for a base game.
Right. There are much more deserving and much less exploitive companies out there, and my money will go to them. He said, I can't wait for next year's show. P.S. Surprised we didn't get a new remastered Skyrim. There's always next year, I suppose. I love Ryan's little comedic jabs that he threw in there. Yeah. All right, so everyone else's thoughts. First of all, how do we feel about the official Game of the Year winner?
I have not played Astrobot, so I can't really say, but I mean, I'm not surprised that it got it, especially how popular it was.
I haven't finished it yet, but I would say it's well deserved.
Yeah, all I can say is that I love this game so much, and my reaction when it won, because I was really expecting Black Myth Wukong to win, and I knew Astrobot had a chance, but there was a part of me, because I always predict that whatever game sweeps the awards isn't going to win, usually, because I remember when Red Dead Redemption 2 swept the awards, but then God of War took home Game of the Year, and I always expect that to happen. And I thought it was going to be an Astrobot versus Wukong thing. I was not expecting Metaphor to get as many wins as it did, and I was very happy with that. And although Balatro isn't my personal cup of tea, I think the fact that it was made by one guy and could win that many awards is very telling. I'm very happy for that guy, taking home 3 or 4 awards that night. That's got to be really cool, you know?
I hate to be that guy, but do you think if this year there didn't seem to be a whole lot of games that really blew people away? There were some, don't get me wrong, but there weren't a whole lot that blew people away. But do you think if this was like any other year, where there were, like the years where there was God of War versus Red Dead, do you think a game like Balatro would have gotten as much attention?
It still would have won the indie categories, I think, because it's a roguelike and people love roguelikes. It's basically a roguelike take on Texas Hold'em and poker, from what I understand. And I don't like roguelikes, and I don't like card games. Well, those kind of card games. So it's not my cup of tea, but just like I can see the appeal for people who do. Like I think it's a game Ryan would like, you know, because he really loves roguelikes like Hades and stuff like that. So and he really likes, cards. So he plays Magic the Gathering obsessively. So I could see it, because it's not just a card game, it's like a goofy take on it too. There's like a point system, and it's almost like you're doing it's almost like you're doing a Pokemon card battle with regular playing cards and using modifiers and shit, And all that being done by one person is impressive to me.
Oh yeah. I'm not gonna knock that. I mean, one person making a game like that got that much attention and could even stand toe to toe with other games that were gonna win awards, let alone win some itself. I totally respect that. It's just when you've got Game of the Year and one of the Games of the Year nominations is a card game, which again I respect that he did that. But you got another one which is DLC. It's like that almost tells me there weren't enough big games that made a big enough splash.
That is also true. That is also true.
Yeah.
This was a lackluster year. Anyways, we didn't mean to cut you off, Michael. Your thoughts on Game of the Year?
I apologize.
No, don't even worry about it. No, so Astrobot was my personal Game of the Year going into this event, and I was one of those people that was beyond hopeful and optimistic that it would win Game of the Year. Not only win Game of the Year, but also sweep quite a bit as well. I want to say I have about 55, 60 hours played into the game. And the game is not long. I mean, you can really honestly, you could probably complete it in about 15 to 20 hours. I've platinumed this game. This was such a true return to form of my generation's form of gaming, of platformers. Really harking back to a lot of, yes, Nintendo style games, but also PS2, PS3 games as well, getting to play an Ape Escape level when I was like the only person I knew that loved Ape Escape 2 and Ape Escape 3 when I was a kid. Getting to relive, Loco Roco again.
That was really cool.
Was so incredible, and the game was so well made and it was so well polished. I didn't come across a single, like bug or glitch or anything, and it ran so seamlessly. And it was this game like fully re-embedded into me why I love gaming so much. Yep. I went from playing, and for those that say that, it's not for real gamers, this and the other, like I'm someone who's platinum Elden Ring. I bought the collector's edition of Shadow of Erdtree because I'm that big of a fan of From Software. I thoroughly loved and enjoyed Black Myth Wukong as well, but it didn't reinvigorate my love for gaming as a whole. I played through Erdtree, and then right after Erdtree was done for me, I immediately hopped into Black Myth Wukong, and I felt very burnt out from games, and I didn't pre-order Astrobot or anything like that. The game got released, it was getting rave reviews. Everyone's talking about just how purely fun it is, and I'm like, I miss games just being fun, just pure fun, pure joy. And
that is what Astrobot is.
It really is. So I went over to Target that's right around the corner from my house, picked it up, and I think I dropped 8 hours immediately from when it downloaded. Like I could not put it down.
Yeah.
It was so deserving of Game of the Year. Anyone that has a different opinion hasn't played the game all the way through.
I flew through that game. I have the platinum in it. I got 100% completion every bot. I've also 100% completed all of the speedrun levels they've added, and the recent Christmas level that they just dropped Thursday night.
I do need to play that once I get back home.
So I
And
don't want to spoil anything for you, but that Christmas level, there are 5 bots you can find in it, and they are some of the best Christmas gifts I could have got this year. Who those bots are, and the era.
I've seen one. I've seen one so far, and I was so upset to see it because it is not just like a favorite like video game character, but just like a very well known pop culture icon.
Yeah.
Who actually I have a tattoo of on my chest in an ice cream form.
And there are, all I will say is, yeah, there are 2 bots that are more recent, but there are 3 that are definitely from the PS1 era, from really obscure games that I feel like only I know about. You know,
I'm so excited.
So excited. But they were some of my favorites.
Now I could talk about Astrobot for days on end. It's the only game that I can think of in recent memory that I'm traditionally someone that if I'm going to pick up a controller, I'm probably going to have that controller in my hand for a minimum of 3 hours.
Oh yeah.
Astrobot's the kind of game where like I just want to do a quick run through of the Grandmaster Challenge, maybe do a couple levels and I'll turn it off, and I'll do that and I feel satiated, feel happy, and I don't get that for such a short amount of gameplay from very many, if any, games.
It took me 14 tries to get through the Grandmaster Challenge level the first time.
Man, it was when my wife and I played through that mission together. Neither of us were sober, and it took us like an hour and a half to beat it, and we were both like just screaming at each other and how excited we were to finally get through it.
Also, I literally have almost nothing bad to say about this game, but the speedrun levels they added, the monkey one in particular, can suck a dick. And so,
no, absolutely,
that does not translate well to the speedrun at all.
Yeah. But again, to kind of show like the gravity of how good this game is, I'm normally someone that doesn't really pay attention to like small little DLC upgrades. I won't go back to a game when I've completed it. Like, like when Pokemon will come out with like special events and all that, I never was one to go back to them to get like the shiny or the new Pokemon or whatever it is. It's just not my normal style. But for this, every single Thursday, you bet your ass I turned on my PlayStation and immediately went to go check out the new speedrun level. And when my wife got home from work that day and I am screaming at that TV about that fucking monkey level. Oh, God, I beat both bots and I refuse to accept failure. But
it's
the only thing in life.
It's the absolute necessity that this game, I don't know what it is, and I've never felt this, and I haven't felt this since the original Spyro games. That need to collect everything, that like and it some games have pushed me to do that for trophies, but it has always felt like a chore or grindy. But in this game, it feels rewarding and fun. Every time you find one of those bots that are dressed like a little PlayStation character and you save them and unlock them, I've worded it this way before. It does this thing where it triggers that little wind-up monkey in your brain that likes it when numbers go up. It's something very primal and satisfying about it. The way that it plays, it's a very reward-based gameplay system.
It absolutely did. And I'm not a trophy hunter by any means whatsoever. I think I have a grand total of 3 platinums, one being Elden Ring, one being South Park. Yeah, I know.
No, listen, those are impressive. Those are impressive. I have like 170 odd some platinums, but a lot of them are from like easy games.
Yeah. The 3 I have is Elden Ring, because I love that game that much. South Park: The Stick of Truth, because it was that easy to get the platinum for it.
I have that one and Fractured Butthole.
Yeah, and then lastly is Astrobot. It's because I could not put that game down.
Yep. So I also got the platinum in the original in Astro's Playroom on the PS5 when the game that was pre-installed on the system when you get it.
Yeah.
I will have to say, Sarah made a really good point. This game was a console exclusive in the Game of the Year category, and their PlayStation fans came in masses out of the woodworks to make this game of the year.
And well, it's not the first console exclusive to win Game of the Year either. Previous Game of the Year winners that are console exclusive have included The Last of Us Part 2, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and God of War.
But I say the fact that a lot of the other games on the Game of the Year category are on multiple platforms, that just speaks volumes as to how powerful when a group comes together can make shit happen.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, even in the acceptance speech, he said that this game wouldn't have been possible without all of these developers coming together from other different franchises that you see.
Yep.
Things like Jack and Daxter, or Sly Cooper, or Ratchet and Clank, or
So cool.
Bloodborne, or whatever it may have been. And he even said, he was like, a lot of them didn't even ask me for anything. They were just like, yeah, dude, here. And I'm like, that's to see the PlayStation community, not just on the player base, but on the developer base, be united as one for a concept like this was just so exciting and so cool to see.
Yeah, and it's it really is a interactive PlayStation museum / graveyard when you you know, and it's so cool to see well-known franchises, obviously, like Crash, Spyro, Resident Evil, and all that represented, but also obscure stuff like Tokyo Jungle from the PS3 and Vib Ribbon from the PS1 and stuff a lot of people have never heard of. There are
even just the original PlayStation icon, like the mascot, like the purple face.
Polygon Man, who was also the final boss in PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale.
Yeah, and like I remember having a gaming magazine that had him as a cover as the announcement of the PlayStation when I was like 4 or 5 years old. And to like have that random obscure memory of having my very first video game magazine in my hand and reading through it as a little kid, you get to relive that moment just for a second. From like
that was Game Informer, was it?
What's that?
Wasn't Game Informer, was it?
It may have been Game Informer. I think it may have been Game Informer. I forget how long Game Informer lasted. Rest in peace this year. But I remember very vividly it being on the cover. It was a black cover with that face on the front of it, and to get to like remember being a little kid and having that in my hand, and when I started first playing games, because my first console ever was fucking Sega Genesis. It was just there were just so many personal moments playing through and opening up a new character of a game that I've played, and again, much like those obscure things as well, it just there are very few games I think of that are genuinely perfect, that are very deserving of a 10 out of 10 score or Game of the Year or anything like that. I mean, this hands down, there's no question Astrobot deserved this.
Right, yeah. I strongly agree. It's who I voted for in the Game of the Year on their website. It's who I voted for.
Yeah.
And Astrobot is a PS1 game on the PS5 is the best way to put it. It is a 90s mascot collectathon platformer revived for today. And it is nostalgic as hell. It takes you back through all the, not only with all the different franchises and stuff, but it has a lot in common with Mario, but there is Crash Bandicoot DNA in there too, especially the like dying in one hit and having to like memorize like patterns and stuff when you're trying to like get across like moving platforms and smashing walls and shit like that, so it's more, I would argue, more challenging than most of your typical 3D Marios, which give you a health bar. You still get a health bar in boss battles, but it's like, but that's also why I like it, because especially like in those speedrun and challenge levels, when you finally get the pattern memorized, when you finally figure out what to do, it got to the point in those challenge levels where I kept dying at the same spot. I would get a little further each time. I was like, you don't win, you just do a little better each time. And then it would get to the point where the parts I've already been through multiple times, I was just flying through them like a master, and then getting caught up in the part where I kept, failing until I got past that. And when you finally do just speed through the whole thing in one go, it makes you feel so accomplished. Since Nick wasn't able to stay with us for the remainder of the show, he has sent in a separate voice message with his thoughts on the announcements from the Game Awards in particular, and we're going to go ahead and play that now.
So, my thoughts on the Game Awards, I did not see them doing a new Pac-Man like game um in a different game style in the form of Shadow Labyrinth. I'm intrigued and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. It looks interesting. Steel Paws is something I am probably going to give a shot. I know it's a Netflix game, but hey, it has cats in it, so there's that. Tales of the Shire. I am so glad that we got more actual gameplay footage and a release date on top of it. So that's definitely one that I will be buying for Sarah. Midnight Murder Club. I don't remember much of this one, but I do know that it grabbed my attention enough to put in my list of notable announcements. I thought it was really fucking cool that Harrison Ford came out to the Indiana Jones theme music to present the award for best performance. Catley, I don't need to know. There's not really much I know about it. They really didn't give much information on it, but it has cats and it's available on the Switch when it comes out. So that'll be one I will be buying as well. Split Fiction has got to be one of my mostments. I really like the unique gameplay in this. The fact that you can jump between sci-fi and fantasy worlds is fucking awesome. Steel Hunters, it looked a lot like a Transformers game. And before they even like, there's a lot going on with that game. So I mean, it looked cool, but I probably won't play it. Turok Origins. I never got the chance to play the OG Turok games, but I do know that the last one was on the Nintendo 64. So I am really looking forward to playing this. It looks so fucking cool. The first Berserker Kazan, if I'm saying that correct, that grabbed my attention. It looks like a kind of looks like a Final Fantasy game, if I remember correctly. It grabbed my attention enough to put it on my list of notable announcements. Stage Fright looked really fun. And I can't wait to play that. Game of Thrones King's Road. When I heard the Game of Thrones theme music, my exact words were, shut the fuck up and take my goddamn money. I am so glad that Game of Thrones is getting a narrative-based game. I'm really excited to play this. I cannot wait to get my hands on it. And that's it for my thoughts on the Game Awards. And you can find me on TikTok at the Gaming Fiend 1, on Twitter at the Gaming Fiend 1, and also over on Blue Sky at the Gaming Fiend 1. Bye.
My co-host just had a hard out, but the guests are still with me. We're gonna finish this conversation, real quick. But yeah, my only other thing to say about Astrobot is that I think the soundtrack is fantastic too. Final Fantasy definitely deserves its soundtrack win because their soundtracks are always objectively good. But this game, I've been listening to the soundtrack on Spotify. I love how the PlayStation levels, which are faithful mini recreations of the games they're based on, even mechanically, the music in them are also remixes, like Astrobot remixes of music from the games. I especially love how the God of War level uses Kratos saying "boy" as the beat drop in the music. It's so well done.
Boy.
Yeah, I enjoyed that quite a bit. So, what was your favorite announcement?
Oh man,
yeah, there were so many good ones.
It's a toss-up for me. And what's funny is they were back-to-back and they were right at the very beginning. And I know this is for a lot of people as well. It's a toss-up between The Witcher 4 and Elden Ring Night Rain. I know I talked just a moment ago about how big of a fan of From Software I am, how much of a huge fan I am of Elden Ring alone. I think I've put in like 400 hours or something like that into it. The idea of a kind of a new concept of it being a multiplayer co-op, 3 people, it's 30-ish minutes, 3 nights. The arena keeps getting smaller and smaller until you get to the final boss. Like, to me, I a lot of people have been kind of weary about it. It's so different from the normal formula that's From Software does. For me, though, it's not every day that I have where I can just sit and grind out for several hours on end, but to be able to have kind of like a nice, quick, I can get, 1 run through or 2 runs through, either with a couple randos by myself, or if, the stars align and, me and 2 of my friends are actually off all at the same time together. It's so awesome. I'm curious to see what the 8 different pre-builds are. I'm traditionally very much a Dex player, and I don't care how much hate I would get. I still play with Rivers of Blood. I'm sorry, I don't care. I'm very excited about that. But The Witcher 4, I have always said that The Witcher 3 is my favorite RPG of all time. Without question, without fail. The story of Geralt and Ciri is so incredible. The dialogue, the gameplay, the world building, everything about it was so incredible. And I love Ciri as a character. I know there are a lot of people that are really upset about it being a female protagonist. And again, my one statement I'll always use is, "What's it to you?" But also, it just canonically, it makes the most sense. Like, if you played the story, depending on the ending that you got, which the ending I got is full-fledged retirement Geralt, it makes the most sense. It looks absolutely stunning. I know CD Projekt Red's been really busy between either, working on this as well as working on Cyberpunk. They just came out with the 2.2 patch update, which is why we're replaying through it right now. And I know there's some worry about CD Projekt Red because of how the launch went for Cyberpunk. As we all have come to find out, a lot of that had to be with shareholder issues and trying to push the game out much sooner than the devs actually wanted the game to come out at. And I do not think that CD Projekt Red is going to make that same mistake twice. I can't express how excited I was, not expecting to see Witcher 4, but to actually see it happen in real time, I literally had chills in the crowd. I couldn't believe I was there to get to see that happen. Yeah, those are my two. I leaning more towards The Witcher 4.
So since we're playing as Ciri in this one, do you think if they're following the lore of the books, that means she went through the trial of grasses?
Yeah, I do think that she'll have gone through the trial of grass. I'm curious to see how the game will start out, because it's clearly after The Witcher 3, right? Like you can see Ciri, she looks a little bit older than what she looked like in The Witcher 3. It looks like it was probably I want to say probably like 10 years after whatever happened in The Witcher 3. I'm curious to see how you'll start out, because when you get to the point in The Witcher 3 where you get to play as Ciri, she's the most OP character possible. And that's 10 years prior to starting on The Witcher 4. So I'm curious how they're gonna blend her mechanics and everything else. I'm also curious to see how they'll incorporate the trials as well. Because she doesn't have in the trailer, at least, she doesn't have Witcher eyes. She does drink a potion that alters it, but she in herself and in the lore of everything, she is already one of the most powerful people with magic. And I'm curious to see where it'll go from here.
Your thoughts, Adam?
Well, I mean, I haven't played a whole lot of the Witcher games. I did play the last one, and just to be honest, I had trouble getting into it, and that's just my own thing. I think I was not in a good mental space, and I think I told you about this. I wasn't in a good mental space when I started playing it, and that's a game that takes attention. So
it's an investment.
I will be giving it another shot. Oh, yeah, definitely. For the ones that I was really looking forward to, I saw the trailer for the first Berserker, Kazan. That one I thought looked really good. And then when I was doing my show earlier, I know you came on there. We both talked about Dispatch.
Yep.
That looks funny.
I'm all in on Dispatch.
Yeah, you got Laura Bailey, you got Aaron Paul and Jeffrey Wright in there, but especially with Aaron Paul and Laura Bailey, the way that they were just totally joking with each other on stage. But then to look at this game, I was like, what is this? It's like an Office Space game. Okay, it's a superhero game, but it's almost being run like an office, and then I find out it's a comedy about how being a superhero is a job.
Well, and it's being made by some of Telltale's leftovers, people who worked on The Wolf Among Us as well.
Yeah.
Which definitely shows, it definitely feels like a Telltale game in the trailer.
Yeah, it really did. And kind of a little side note on there, I was a little disappointed we didn't get any more information on The Wolf Among Us 2, other than
that's vaporware right now.
They said other than earlier in the year, they said it hasn't been canceled, but I'm like, okay, what's happening with it? Silence.
Yeah, it took us like 13 years to get to The Last Guardian, so like
yeah. Stage Fright I thought looked funny, but that wasn't one that really got me. I would say other ones were I
just wanted to say real quick, the other thing about Dispatch is it's giving me Harvey Birdman Attorney at Law vibes.
Yeah.
Or like She-Hulk a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see it. I was really kind of surprised to see that they were getting a Pac-Man reboot, like a dark and gritty Pac-Man reboot.
It's a Pac-Man Metroidvania.
Yeah. I kind of freaked out a little bit during the Turok Origins trailer, just because I was so surprised to see that they were bringing Turok back. When that trailer first started, I could have sworn it was Dino Crisis.
Yep. Oh, and people have been wanting a Dino Crisis remake.
I literally, we were in the crowd, like, I want to say like 10 seconds in. As soon as you see the first dinosaur, I look over at Daniel and I'm like, is this a fucking Turok game?
Uh-huh.
Like, I haven't played Turok since Nintendo 64. Is this a Turok game? Like,
the last game was N64.
Yeah, like I just like, and I don't know, there were so many surprises, because I'm somebody who did play through all of the Onimusha games. To see Onimusha coming back was such a huge thing, and equally like to see after 20 years to see Okami having a sequel was that, I think that was the moment that like I think that's what made my jaw drop the hardest out of everything, because there's always the hope of something like The Witcher. There's always hope of something from Software. I didn't expect Okami 2 to be announced.
Nobody expected that. Was one that almost is like in the same realm of, like, remember when they initially announced Alan Wake 2 and nobody saw that coming?
No.
Yeah, that's nobody saw that coming. Huh?
I wholeheartedly would have expected hearing Half-Life 3 before I heard Okami 2.
Yes, oh my god. Okami, I'm so excited for that to come back. The original game, underrated PS2 gem.
Oh, good.
I'd like to see them maybe do a remaster of the original one to help people get back into it, but I don't know if they'll do that, but that's kind of what I'd like to see.
I've noticed a trend, actually, speaking of Astrobot, and, might sound a little conspiratorial, but Okami is another game that's represented in Astrobot. And they really dig deep for the representation in that game, and there are a lot of characters that people are like, where's such and such, and then they end up patching them in later. They've patched in characters from like Rise of the Ronin and stuff like that. Later on, and and like I said, some PS1 classics in the Christmas level, and I noticed that a lot of the games, the obscure dead franchises that have been represented in Astrobot, like Ninja Gaiden, Omninasha, Okami, stuff like that, they are all coming back. And I almost wonder if that's intentional, almost as if that game was meant to advertise the revival of these series. Or to garner new interest for it so that they could put these new games out and people would actually care about them.
Well, damn it, where's my Jack 4 then?
Exactly. That means it could be
other games come back.
True. Well, I mean, Naughty Dog is clearly working on something really amazing. Or I am cautiously optimistic that it's going to be amazing. But man, if I was to be asked, like, of all franchises, which one would you want to see return? It is 1,000%. It would be Jak and Daxter.
Scott from What Culture 2, he had tweeted before the Game Awards, because there was rumors going around about Animusha or whatever. He said, if there's a new one of these games, I will burst. And then right after it was announced, because he's in the UK, so he was asleep when the show aired, because it was like 2 a.m. over there. He tweeted, holy shit, like first thing in the morning the next day. And then later on he tweeted, he's like, this means all the originals are coming to the PS Classics lineup on PS Plus Premium, right? And with the meme of Padme from Star Wars 2 on it.
Right.
Yeah, you could only hope. That's the other thing, too. It's not just series revivals. The other thing I noticed is that a lot of those games represented in Astrobot are making their way to the PS Plus premium catalog for their classic games, their version of Nintendo's Virtual Console. That's the other thing, too. It's kind of... So, like, I do feel like the timing is kind of intentional. It can't just be mere coincidence at this point.
I was personally really excited to see a new Mafia: The Old Country that got that new narrative trailer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was actually talking to Koimiya about it, my co-host, and I was saying, it's kind of odd that they have a Mafia game and a Grand Theft Auto game coming out in the same year. But then him and I were kind of talking, and it was like, okay, if they release them in 2 different quarters, then they can both stand on their own. And obviously, Grand Theft Auto will be the one to take it, but Mafia will at least have a chance if it doesn't launch right next to it. And at the same time, we were just like, I think they're different enough. They call for 2 different audiences. Yeah, they both go for the open world, but I think they call 2 different audiences. I think it should be fine. But that one really, really got to me too. Yeah, and Inimuasha, or however you say that. There was actually
Onimusha. There it is.
So I was actually talking when I was streaming this, and I was like, have you noticed, you saw how bloody that trailer was, right? And how violent and everything. And I was like, okay, so if they were to do this on the Oscars and try to show a movie that had this level of violence in the trailer, everyone would freak out. But because it's on the internet, that makes it okay. But even though it's on the internet, because it has to be American censorship, if they show a woman who is in a battle and like her like top armor comes off and you see her breast, all of a sudden the world's gonna end. How does this make sense in American censorship that we can show all this brutal violence, but a woman shows a boob and suddenly the world
And remember, kids, TV violence is fine as long as you don't show a nipple.
Yep, and I was kind of interested in that Split Fiction, that guy from It Takes Two.
Oh my god, yeah. Every
Justin
game that Hazelight has put out so far has been an absolute banger. Brothers, A Way Out, and It Takes Two. I love all three of them.
Yeah,
Split Fiction. So,
Go ahead, sorry.
I was gonna say, I gotta ask you, how did the audience react with him up there swearing like a sailor again, like he always does?
Dude, so I honestly, like, I want to say like what, 10, 15 minutes before that, Daniel was like, you know what this event needs? I'm like, what's that? And he goes, I need people to start talking more like millennials. I need somebody to say motherfucker or something on stage. And like 10 minutes later, he comes out and starts dropping F-bombs left and right. Everyone in the crowd where we were at, we were all honestly just laughing. We were all just like, oh, okay. We got a real homie up here now. This is great.
Well, I mean, Jeff did say they let him up there against their better judgment, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, if you watch the Honest trailer that Screen Junkies put out for the Game Awards before, like a few days ago, one of the things they said was, like, it's always fun to sit there and watch Jeff kind of sweat when things start to go off the rails, you know?
Yeah.
You know what's funny? I was going to say, you know what was honestly, weirdly enough, and I was a part of it, the loudest crowd cheer I personally heard throughout that entire event, it was during the Elden Ring Night Rain when he starts running up the wall. Everyone started losing their mind. They're like, they're giving us too much power in these games.
I'm not a big fan of Souls-likes, but I thought it was really cool how that Cerberus split into 3 different dogs. And from what I understand, this is a standalone game, and it's more of a it's an actual co-op game, like more team-based or something. Apparently it also has like the shrinking map thing, like Fortnite, going on.
Yeah,
I've heard.
So it has shrinking map. It's like a
roguelike.
It's like a roguelike co-op battle royale, which is like the weirdest combination to try to like explain. But yeah, it's basically as each day passes, the map is supposed to get smaller and smaller, and by the final day is when you fight the final boss, and you have a fairly small arena. Which the small arena is essentially just like a normal arena. You just don't have like a large map to kind of run around on.
Okay.
You know, and it's cool because it's a lot of mixtures of different. It's like a From Software universe game, because I mean you can even see in the trailer, you see the Nameless King as one of the opponents that you'll fight, and the Nameless King is from Dark Souls 3. And like had nothing to do with Elden Ring itself. So I'm really curious as these coming months come out if they're trying to create like a multiverse, you know, fighting game essentially, but within the Elden Ring scope of things.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see that from where you guys are sitting. From where I was sitting here, it sounded like the largest reaction the crowd had was from Harrison Ford walking out.
Yeah, that's what I saw on stream too.
I was thinking for trailers, but yes, I mean, it was, and what's funny because what is it? I forget what podcast I was listening to, but somebody had like said it would be really funny if Harrison Ford came out because that man only cares about money and it's probably in his contract. And so me going in, I'm like, I wonder if he is actually going to show up. And I saw they had the 2 dual screen at the beginning, and they closed it for Indiana Jones. And I'm like, no way, they're actually going to bring this guy out here. And yeah, it was a thunderous applause. Like, it was so cool to be in the same room as Harrison Ford. That is not anything I ever thought to experience in my life.
So on the note of those screens,
he said, I wonder what.
Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say when he said, I wonder what he thinks. I honestly thought they were going to bring out George Lucas, because George Lucas has more to do with video games than Harrison Ford. And then it was like once you saw the silhouette, I was like, "Holy shit, it's Harrison Ford!" You know, it's like, and I was shouting. You actually see in the clip that I have, my wife comes in. And I was like, "Because of the Indiana Jones game, Harrison Ford is there."
Yeah, yeah, it was so cool, and I mean it being in that crowd. Like, yeah, I when I say like biggest cheer, I was thinking more on like the scope of like new announcements of trailers and things like that.
Yeah,
But in general, no, it was absolutely Harrison Ford. Like, I mean, it was the only time you could feel the venue itself like shaking a little bit from how excited everybody was to see him come out on stage. It was, I mean, it's a moment that I don't think I'll ever forget.
I thought the best part on there was the Statler and Wardolph.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Ripping on Jeff.
I was gonna say, speaking of which, so you know how he was from y'all's point of view, from watching at home and everything else, that it looked like he was looking up at those two and having a full-fledged conveation.
Yeah.
I don't know where those two fucking puppets actually were. I could not see them anywhere.
I could see a little bit of where they were.
Could you? I couldn't see. It just looked like he was talking into the air.
Filming the like pre-show trailers and everything.
Yeah.
They were near that. They were like,
I like my idea better of him just talking into thin air.
Like Clint Eastwood with the chair.
I literally like now, granted, like I am as blind as it can get, but I literally like I'm over here. Where the fuck are these puppets? Like, it looks like he's talking to nothing. I'm like, is it a mirage? Like, am I losing my mind right?
But you could hear them.
But it's just, I know Ryan said that the Muppets were kind of played out for him, but I was like, I think this was the best year for them. I mean, last year they had Gonzo and the Chicken, which was like, okay, that's funny, but come on.
Yeah.
And you had Bunsen and Beaker like a year or so before that, and it was like, yeah, who hasn't seen the slapstick where one of them gets caught on fire and runs out, you know, and it was like, okay, we get it, but this was actually like, wow, I'm actually glad they were there because they just ripped Jeff up one side.
No, to me, it felt like a Comedy Central roast, and it was really well done. I got like an audible, like, oh, when they said, oh, the theater's not full. I heard he always sells out, you know? It was like...
So did I. I was like, oh,
right.
That's a burn.
Yeah, I was like, damn, they went hard on him, you know?
So it's one.
It started getting actually a little mean-spirited in the third round, you know?
I will say I actually don't think it 100% sold out. Like I looked at the website for tickets like a week prior, and it looked like there were still like 30, 40 seats still available. I'm not sure if they did fill them out, but there were two different lines whenever you were getting near the venue. One which was like your normal entry for those that were ticket holders. So they actually have a separate line there that was for standbys for it, like somebody that didn't show up by a certain time. Their ticket would be considered no longer valid, and I think it was like 15 minutes into the actual show that they would let people go in. So that way, it was every seat was fully filled out. Because like where we were sitting, right in front of us, there was like 4 seats that were completely empty until like 30 minutes into the actual, not the opening ceremony, but the actual show itself. Nobody was sitting there, and then like 4 people that I swear I saw on that line came and sat in. So that's how they kind of like filled it out from my perspective.
So I have to ask, from the perspective of being there in the audience, because on stream it looked really cool when they did those tricks with the screen, like when they announced stage fright, for example, and when you're watching it on the stream from home, the way that they do it, it looked like those characters were actually up on the stage in person.
Yes. So, and then that stage fright, that was the only one that it looked like that. And I will say that had the coolest announcement as far as like a visual representation. Because it literally, the way that it had worked, the way they had formatted it literally looked like they were 3D and that they were standing on stage. And then one side being purple and one side being teal. It looked like actual explosions that were coming across. That was a really cool thing to see in person.
Okay. So if I'm being honest, my top announcement, it's kind of a hard choice between an Okami sequel, Naughty Dog's new game, Intergalactic, Split Fiction, and the new game from Team Ico. But I think what might just squeeze a little bit above the rest of those is The Outer Worlds 2 for me. I loved the first game. It was in my top 10 games of 2020. It is the perfect marriage of Fallout, Mass Effect, and Borderlands, and the whole game is basically comedic social commentary on capitalism. I loved everything about it. It
Well, I love
was.
how the developer makes fun of themselves in their own trailer. You know.
Yup.
So I will say I think that was that trailer was the one thing I think genuinely upset Daniel the entire time. And not because it was Outer Wilds 2. It's because the trailer starts with from the makers of Knights of the Old Republic, and he went, yes. And then it said 2, and he goes, no.
Yeah. Yep. But Obsidian, highly underrated developer. They made arguably the best Fallout game, New Vegas.
Not even arguably, it is the best Fallout game. Oh God, New Vegas.
I love how they went like, and Fallout 3, 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then they had to remind everybody that was New Vegas.
And they didn't they do the original work on South Park Stick of Truth before the developer changed?
They may have. I don't know. I mean, when I think of Obsidian, the first thing that comes to mind is New Vegas. Like, I honestly did not know that they had made Knights of the Old Republic 2 and a couple of the other IPs that they talked about. I knew they made Outer Worlds, but I wasn't expecting a sequel for it. I haven't played it. I've heard a lot of incredible things. It is one of the 8,000 games I have on my backlog. But I'm excited to see how it comes out and all of that.
Yeah, so if you love that kind of like revolutionary, like, you know, comedic takes on capitalism and stuff, then The Outer Worlds is definitely for you. If you like, it's the gameplay of Fallout. It's got a lot of like, you know, Bethesda stuff in it where you can like steal from people, but and stuff like that, mechanics. But then it's also got your collecting a crew of people on a ship and gathering them together to help you do the thing, and you can build relationships with them and stuff, and they approve and disapprove of your actions. So there's the Mass Effect part, and then the Borderlands part is in like some of the overtop comedy. It's just a very like tongue-in-cheek, self-aware game. So
speaking of which, how did y'all feel about the trailer from Borderlands 4?
Yes, I was gonna ask that too.
What I think happened with that was I think they were expecting the Borderlands movie to be a huge success, and then they were going to ride the coat waves of success into announcing Borderlands 4, and then show this trailer. And I'm like, okay, the movie flopped harder than almost any movie in history, and I think now they're just trying to distance from it and go like, remember the games are good. So,
yeah, well, they are.
Yeah, the trailer looked really good.
Ryan is excited for it. He said he really liked how the trailer opened with like the cyborg psycho war.
I will say this. There is someone that I very, very personally know who's a tester for Gearbox, and I want to try to be as vague about this person as well, because they've signed an NDA and all of that fun stuff.
Right.
From what has been shared with me from doing testing for better part of 2024, this is as I was shared this is fucking it. This is what everybody wanted Borderlands 3 to be. That just kind of missed the mark on it. They're like, obviously it's new characters and everything else. They're like, but this is, and he was like, and obviously, there's a little bit of bias because I work for this company, but this is the Borderlands game, in my personal opinion. That's coming from somebody who's been playing, bugged out pre-alpha and had been playing it for hours every single day, 5 days a week. This game is going to be incredible. And I even reached out to this person after the Game Awards to be like, listen, like I don't want to rain on anyone's parade or anything like that, but next year's looking really stacked for games, like really, really stacked. You've got the obviouses of things like GTA that you're going to be going up against, but you've got things like Mafia. You've got things like a new Elden Ring game. You've got so many different things that you're going to be going up against. Like, how do you personally feel? And he goes, even with knowing all of those things, he goes, the big hurdle for any game is gonna be GTA 6. There's no question about that. And he goes, outside of that, he goes, I really don't think any game holds a candle, in my personal opinion, to what this game is going to be when it comes out. So I like the Borderlands series, but just from talking with this person, I'm very excited to see this game.
Yeah, I played through the entirety of Borderlands 3 on stream with Ryan and Dylan. Dalton joined us a couple of times, but it was mostly Ryan and Dylan. And
Yeah,
there are actually several highlight videos on my YouTube channel of our playthroughs of that game that are just boiled down to it was mostly the three of us, but then every once in a while someone else would jump on, like Matt or Dalton or whatever, and they'd play too. Yeah, but we went through the whole game and we enjoyed it. I played Tales of the Borderlands. Ryan didn't, so I had to explain to him who Reese was and why Borderlands 3 starts the way it does. Because it is canonical. It does pick up where that game left off. And I was also pissed that Reese wasn't Troy Baker again.
yeah,
But overall, we had fun, and I told him, like, yeah, Borderlands 4 looks solid, man. Like, I'd play through the whole thing with you again, you know. Because I can't play those games by myself. They're too hard. You gotta play them with someone else. They're designed that way, you know. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. Maybe not top of my list, but definitely looking forward to it.
It'll be something I definitely pick up when it comes out. It's not. I wouldn't even say it's in my top 10 things I'm most looking forward to playing, but it's not in my top 5. It looks really good. It looks like I'm going to have a lot of fun with it, and I'm just, I'm excited to either tell the person I know that they were 100% right, or that they doomed me out of $70.
Do you all remember the all of the nominees for the best or for the most anticipated category, and if so, what was your personal pick? Nick's would have been GTA 6.
Yeah, my pick was GTA 6. I don't remember.
Mine was Death Stranding 2.
And I don't get me wrong, I am excited to play Death Stranding 2 as well. I guess for me voting on that one, I wasn't voting on what I personally feel like is my most anticipated game, but what I think kind of the mass populace is going to be choosing. I'm trying to remember what was on there.
Well, on there, I've got it pulled up here. There was Death Stranding 2, Ghost of Yotei, or Yotei, however you say that.
Yep.
Grand Theft Auto 6, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, Monster Hunter Wilds.
That's right.
Out of those, mine was Grand Theft Auto 6, if you're talking about just those.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and
so it would have been all three of you.
For a personal, it's Ghost of Yotei.
Yeah, my personal also Ghost of Yotei all the way.
Okay. Yeah. My personal is definitely Death Stranding 2, but then followed by Ghost of Yotei. I know if I was to ask Ryan, he would probably say it's between Monster Hunter Wilds and Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah.
That's those. So
let me ask you guys something. So with Grand Theft Auto 6 being so highly anticipated, it seems to me, and my co-host Connor was actually saying the same thing. There's only two ways this is going to go. It's either going to blow everyone away with, exceeding expectations, or because expectations are so high, it's going to fail. What do you think is going to happen?
I think it's going to be the latter. I think, truthfully, it's going to be, it's already a worldwide phenomenon. And literally a fun factoid for you is because my career is in staffing and recruiting, and so I pay attention to a lot of the market of different businesses and their projections and hiring and firing and growth and all of that stuff. There is a duly noted across all industries a concern for the announcement of the release date for GTA 6, because they believe that there will be a massive dip in productivity around the world from that release date up to 5 days after that, which will greatly affect the economy of so many different countries. And that's how powerful this game anticipation is. And I don't think that there is really a way to satiate everyone's most ridiculous desires and wishes for this game to be flawless, because candidly, I mean, there has not really, in my personal opinion, there's never been a flawless, Rockstar game. Like, yes, Red Dead 2 has one of the best stories ever, but gameplay and mechanics are, a little bit more to be desired. Same with GTA 5 as well. And so when something is put on the most impossible pedestal, I can't see them delivering on what everyone's hopes and dreams are.
That's fair. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like the Kingdom Hearts 3 problem. Our expectations were so high after all that time that what we got was mediocre.
Yeah. I think that the story that they have for GTA 6 is going to be incredible. I mean, it's based in Florida essentially. Like, there's no way that's not going to be awesome. Like, there's no way that the story is not going to be great.
It's back to Vice City, which is essentially Florida.
Yeah. Yeah, I just there's no way that the story is not going to be an incredible story, but I think when you have it something this hyped and put this high on a pedestal, like there's no way not even to exceed, but just meet the expectation. So I feel like it's going to crush every number, and it's going to blow sales out of proportion and everything else. But I don't think this is going to have the same lasting gravitas that GTA 5 had in continuously growing it, because I just don't see that happening, and I feel like it's going to fall just flat enough that it's not going to be what everybody was really hoping for.
Yeah, I can definitely see that happening. I have gone into some things with really high expectations before, only to come out and be like, it wasn't quite what I thought it would be. But
I'll never forget No Man's Sky.
Oh God, yeah. No Man's Sky is good now, but in the beginning, Jesus.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Well, now it's what they promised it would be.
Yeah. What, 6-7 years later?
But hey, yeah, they can redeem themselves. So the last thing I want to do before, real quick, is I just want to quickly go down the list of each winner here, and then you can stop me on any one that you want to talk about, and then we'll go into closing thoughts and wrap up. So, the best fighting game was Tekken 8, which I've heard a lot of good things about, but haven't played it myself. I'm not big on the traditional fighting games. I prefer cross brawlers like Smash Bros. Is more my cup of tea. But Scott has raved about it on What Culture, so I know that it's definitely got an audience out there. Best VR game was Batman Arkham Shadow, which I want to play, but I don't have the MetaQuest 3. I only have the 2. So, but it looks so good. I'm like, it's a good Arkham game after the disappointment that was Suicide Squad. So it's kind of what we need.
Suicide Squad is going to be free, or not free, but it's going to be where you can play it offline now.
Oh boy. The Games for Impact Award. I wasn't expecting this to win, but Neva, which I have played some of, and if you've played Gris or Gris, or however you want to pronounce it, it's the same developers and a very similar art style and kind of concept of being a side-scrolling platformer with some light combat mechanics and mostly just like a silent narrative that is a metaphor for different things. Gris was a metaphor for depression, where you go through like the stages of depression in that game represented by different colors. So it's Neva, I haven't quite figured out what the message is in it yet, but there's a cute little wolf that follows you around. So I was really expecting that award to go to Life is Strange, though, for whatever reason. But best family game, Astrobot, I can agree. Although Ryan kind of pointed out, he's like, it's weird that a single-player game wins best family game. You'd think it'd be something they could all play together, but then we were like, well, Mario Party was the only multiplayer game on that category, so unfortunately.
I was really sad that Senua's Saga didn't win Games for Impact.
Yeah, yeah. Well, my thing about Hellblade 2, which I love the first game, it was my game of the year 2017, came, it actually beat out Resident Evil 7 for me. And, uh, the second game, I enjoy it. I really do. But it is it's more of the same. It's not really doing anything new or innovative with what it's done before, and it makes it almost feel like a one-trick pony. It's using all the exact same bag of tricks as the first game did. And just the only difference is that this game is expanding the lore by adding more companions and a bigger world. And in a way, though, I almost feel like that's kind of to its detriment because it takes away some of the ambiguity from the first game of it all being in her head. With all these other people being around and confirming the reality of it, it's no longer ambiguous. Some of it is, though. Some of it's still in her head, but some of it's really happening, and it's kind of hard to tell the difference between the two throughout the game, which I know is the point, but it won best audio design too, and I'm sure that's because they were doing the same like voices in her head mechanic. If you wear headphones, the voices are coming from all around and make you actually kind of go crazy when you hear them.
Oh yeah, Connor was telling me that the first time he played the first game, it was on just regular console. He didn't have it on the headset, and then when he played it on the headset, he was like, "Oh my god, it's like a whole different experience."
Yeah, exactly. And that is really well done. I was kind of hoping Best Audio would go to Silent Hill 2, though, because the audio plays a lot in that game to what makes it so scary when I'm playing it. Like, when enemies are nearby, radio static plays through the speaker on the PS5 controller, and when you're playing that game in the dark at, like, 2 in the morning, it makes a difference, It really sells it. So I was surprised. I was also surprised to see Melina Juergens get Best Performance. I 100% thought that was going to Brianna White for Aerith in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Like, I thought that was a shoe-in for her. But again, Melina does...
that was a good one. Didn't she win when she won, or didn't she win for Senua for the first game too?
Yep, in 2017, which I definitely thought was fully deserved then, and it's deserved now too, but it was deserved even more then because I think the story behind how she became Senua was that she was actually an intern at Ninja Theory that they got to do like placeholder acting, but she channeled her real life mental health pain into the performance, and it was so good that they made her Senua.
Yeah.
So it's real pain.
She didn't necessarily like that though, right to begin with, because she was so nervous, when she acts in real life, and then that happened.
It was real life pain channeled into that performance in that first game, though, and of course that shines through in this one too. So it's definitely a deserved award. I just there's a part of me that that thinks that maybe I kind of wish that some of those awards would have went to other people, but it's still deserved. Like, I won't contest that she deserves it for sure.
No, she definitely does.
The accessibility award went to Prince of Persia, which I agree with because that's a Metroidvania game that has a lot of accessibility. There are, like, you can place map markers and stuff to kind of, like, teleport back to, and it's easier than your typical Metroidvania. Not hand-holdy, but a lot more, like, accessible to people who normally aren't good at them, So I can see that. Best action game was Black Myth Wukong. I saw that coming a mile away. It was either going to be that or Stellar Blade, 100%. Best multiplayer game was Helldivers 2. Saw that coming a mile away as well. Like, there was no way that wasn't gonna win after the reception it got earlier this year. Community support, Baldur's Gate 3. Art style, Metaphor, Free Fantasio.
So let me ask you about community support. So another thing Connor and I were talking about on our show was what community support for me means that the game's been around for quite a long time. Do you think Helldivers should deserve a community support when it's launched less than a year ago? Because it's not continuing support.
It's a misleading category, but I think what that category actually means is that it goes to the developer that has shown the best support to their community. It's not the game that the community supports the most, it's the other way around. It's the developer that listens it's the developer that listens to community feedback and puts out updates to address concerns and adds content and stuff like that in an ongoing. Usually it goes to like live service games and MMOs, but Baldur's Gate 3 has been a game of constant updates. No Man's Sky I think was up for this in the past too for the same reason. So
I know Cyberpunk won last year because of the 2.0 update plus Phantom Liberty as well.
So that's what that award is for. It's for the developer that actually listens to their fans and gives them what they want with the update patches for the most part, and is transparent with the community about what's going on. That's what I think it's for. So yeah, I would say Helldivers belongs in there because of the amount of work that they've put into it since it's been out. And that is a live service game too, where, you know, like while you're sleeping at night not playing it, other players around the world are defending those worlds from the bugs. You can wake up the next morning and one of those planets is gone because it's all happening in real time. So
right.
Yeah, I could see it. I think, best art style going to Metaphor Ray and Fantasio. I'm 100% on that. I love the stylistic art style of the Persona games. They're very like edgy and in your face with it, and it's stylistic is the only right way to describe it. I love it so much, and I love how, you know, some of the cutscenes are hand drawn anime animation, but then the actual gameplay is this almost like, I would almost call it like cel shaded sketchbook drawings. That really pop out with like the outlines and stuff on the characters. So yeah, that 100% deserved that award in my opinion. Best game direction for Astrobot. Yep, I could see that. The debut indie and regular indie award both went to Balatro. Action adventure game for Astrobot. More sweeps. RPG for Metaphor Free Fantasio, which, yeah, I agree, but I was almost half expecting that to go to Dragon's Dogma 2, if I'm being honest. I've heard a lot of good things about that game this year too.
You know, so I've played both. Like I'm currently playing through Metaphor right now. Dragon's Dogma 2, it is an RPG, but it felt like it was really scaled back on a lot of like the elements of customization that you would really look for and anticipate out of like a fantasy-based RPG game. It felt like a lot of the mechanics that you would like try to level up really didn't make any big differences. I enjoyed Dragon's Dogma 2. I didn't like super love it. Like it's in that kind of like, 6 to 7 out of 10 range for me. I personally speaking, I think they hit it right on the nose with giving it over to Metaphor.
Yeah. Yep, it is deserving. Metaphor. It also won Best Narrative, I believe, which I also can wholeheartedly agree with because Metaphor's name is pretty on the nose when you consider when you dig deep into what the narrative is about. Quite frankly, I'm surprised the usual bad faith people on the internet haven't called the game woke yet, and I think the only reason they haven't is because the story is so well handled that the metaphor goes right over their heads. Quite frankly, is what it is.
Also a male protagonist, so they can't complain about that aspect.
It's not spoon-fed enough, but that game couldn't have come out at a more timely, time around the most recent election, considering the way that the narrative goes and the literal metaphors in it for like classism, racism, stuff like that. It's all handled in a different way in a fantasy setting, but and the other thing I like is that the book that you're carrying around seems to be about our world. And some of the monsters that you fight are actually called humans, and they're like these Lovecraftian body horror monstrosities of what a human used to look like. And I almost wonder if this isn't some kind of like far, far post-apocalyptic future where animals have anthropomorphized or whatever, and what used to be humans are now these monsters. And the book that he's carrying around is about the old world, or if it is just like another fantasy dimension or something. I feel like there's going to be some kind of rug pull or twist near the end of the game that's going to have to do with that fucking book, quite frankly. I just
gotta tell you, if you like Lovecraftian kind of things, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine.
If you if you love Lovecraftian kind of things, I know H.P. Lovecraft was kind of a sack of shit, but
Yeah.
if you actually love the kind of lore and stuff that he puts in, you definitely check out this new game that came out. I want to say it came out earlier this year called Still Wakes the Deep.
Yep, played it.
And I was really surprised that did not get an indie nomination. That game was freaking phenomenal.
Yep, played it, loved it. I recorded a whole Let's Play of it. It was my final face cam Let's Play because my laptop's kicking the bucket. And it is, I haven't put all the episodes out of it yet. I've got like 3 more to put out. But I loved it. It's in my my nominations for in my nominee video for my top 10 this year. So yeah, it's really fun. But yeah, so Still Wakes the Deep, I recommend it too for any horror game fan, and it has a lot in common with Soma. Actually, when I was playing it, I was getting Soma vibes quite a bit. So the rest of these real quick. The best strategy game was Frostpunk 2, sports game FC Soccer 25. Sorry, Nick, he wanted it to be the wrestling game. Best ongoing. What's that?
Oh, I was gonna say. I don't know. Maybe it's just me or I'm losing my mind or anything. I thought it was really strange that College Football 25 didn't make the cut for a nominee this year out of everything that they had listed.
Yeah, I have no dog in that fight because I don't really care about sports games. But
and I will say very adamantly, the quietest the crowd was the entire night was during the best sports category. It really was. It really was. I'm not a big sports person or like sports game person, traditionally speaking. I've never played a 2K basketball game. I've never been interested. I hate Madden, this, that, and the other. Yeah. I will say I did enjoy NCAA when I was in middle school, high school, freshman, sophomore year of college. And for a game to be gone because of legal reasons with the NCAA for a decade, to come back and to be the most popular game, at least in the United States, for sports this year, it was odd to not see it be in the nomination category. I know that they look at things on a worldwide scale, but I thought that was odd.
Yeah. Soccer games always win this category for some reason. It's almost inevitable. Like, I predicted it. I'm like, they always win. They never don't. Every time there's a FIFA game, it always wins. So, yeah. And this wasn't even a FIFA game, but still, yeah. Ongoing game, Helldivers 2, best adaptation, Fallout. Wholeheartedly agree with this. It could not have been anything but this or Arcane. Everything else on that list is at least mildly disappointing in some kind of, especially Knuckles. I hated how they handled that show. So
people were laughing and booing when they mentioned Yakuza, which I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't that booing part. I was so mad because I love the Yakuza franchise, and for them to make whatever Amazon did, it was just such a travesty.
Yeah, I've heard that I've heard from people who love the games that show is an insult. So
yeah.
Lara Croft has gotten mixed reviews, but Knuckles was also an insult. Those Sonic movies are so good, but that show, it starts good, and then halfway through it becomes the Wade Whipple show, and it gets so fucking stupid and slapsticky and just childish. And there's like a whole part where Knuckles has a fever dream, and there's puppets involved, and it's just really dumb.
Well, it sounds like the movies are more aimed at nostalgic audiences like us, but the TV show was trying to be more aimed at kids, and it's really just it can't be both.
No, you can't. Very much. I still need to go see the third movie, but I really I'm excited.
It comes out, I think, next week we finally get to see him piss on the moon.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was out already, but it's okay. Yeah.
I think
it doesn't come out until Friday. It's like 5 days before Christmas.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely going to the theaters for it. And
it's the movie that brought Jim Carrey out of retirement. So I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, and if I could be so bold, I would say he's the main reason that these movies are so good. I would argue Jim carried the first movie.
Did you hear officially why he came back for the third one?
Why?
Well, yeah, he said that he bought a bunch of stuff and needed money or whatever.
Oh.
He goes, well, I bought a bunch of stuff lately and I need money. And I'm like, what an honest answer, man. I appreciate that.
I think he was joking with that, honestly. But I think he just loves the Sonic movie because remember he said there'd have to be like a golden script or something that he just has to do, and I think he just loves playing this character. Honestly, like they let him be old school Jim Carrey.
Yes, yeah, and it's great. On the note of Fallout, though, one of the best adaptations I've ever seen, quite frankly.
Oh, yeah.
Ella Purnell and Walton Goggins have great chemistry, and maybe it's the over-the-top violence in the addition of Walton Goggins, but this show kind of feels like a Tarantino movie, if I'm being honest. Just the way that it's like directed and paced and all that. Ella Purnell, she kind of came out of nowhere. She was great in Yellow Jackets, and now she's in everything, and I love her. She's adorable. And that okie dokie gets stuck in your head, you know. Yeah. I love how they handle the lore of the series, where this show is canonical to the overall series lore without stepping on its toes. You know, yeah. It's like it stands on its own, but it takes place in the game's continuity. And I love how they did that one scene where you see all of those heads around the table, and they're talking about you see all those heads around the table, and they're talking about all the vaults that they're going to open up and the experiments they're going to have in them. And throughout the games, you can actually find these vaults, and you go in them and you find notes about those very experiments they talk about, and it's just a really nice tie-in. And you see the aftermath of each of these things they talked about doing in these vaults throughout the different games that you can explore. And so I like how they handled that. The whole thing was just very well done. It was like a solid 9 out of 10 show for me. So, yeah. Best music was Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Definitely deserved. Final Fantasy games always have the best music. You know, I could have seen Astrobot or Metaphor would have been my other choices for soundtrack, though.
I mean, I personally voted for Astrobot just because of how infectious everything is. And plus, I forget... Yep. There's a couple different missions where you're like underground with a bunch of mushrooms. Whatever that song is for those levels, I absolutely love. My wife and I will hum that song to each other all the time. As well as the sound for the challenge levels or the Grandmaster level, I think is just wildly infectious.
Yep.
But I will say there was a part of me that desperately really wanted Metaphor to win solely because of the battle song and
it's a meme.
Rap. That gibberish rap is so good. It is so good.
Right. No, it's now everyone, because of that song, they're talking about how they're like, in my next D&D campaign, I'm making a rapping monk character, you know? And it's perfect, yeah, and I love it too. The director said it's supposed to sound like Buddhist chanting, apparently.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, but it's just like really fat. Yeah, it was like it's like insane. Yeah, I saw that too, but. It's hard to deny that Final Fantasy music is very iconic, and Nobu Uematsu is an absolute genius who came back to do the soundtrack for the 7 Remake trilogy. Came out of retirement to work on that soundtrack. Yeah. So, you know, and I appreciate I like all of their soundtracks, but that one, or 7's music is iconic, and they do a really good job recreating it. If you had to pick like one thing from that game that is absolutely flawless, it's definitely the music out of everything else.
Well, and what I will say about the composer as well that I did think was really cool is there was a side area of the venue itself that a lot of the people that either spoke or were like, you know, special privilege for the event itself were coming out of. And the composer was actually just standing out there in the crowd doing a bunch of autographs for people on their PS5 copies of Rebirth.
Oh, that's cool.
Which was so like, and you don't see that very often. I thought it was just absolutely incredible. During that time, Danielle and I actually had a chance to meet and take a photo with and talk for a bit with Phil Spencer of Xbox, which was so cool, so cool. He was also with, and I cannot remember his name. I think it's Nava, the CEO of Microsoft, was with him as well. So we got that was really cool. It also brought one of the funniest moments for me, as we did see Troy Baker coming out, and when I say that man moved with the quickness to get as far away from that crowd as quickly as possible, it looked like he was like speed walking almost into a run to try to get away from crowd.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, a lot of video game voice actors have celebrity status now, so I can see that.
Wait, say again?
A lot of video game voice actors have celebrity status now, so I can see that, trying to avoid the paparazzi and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was just, I thought I'd share that because the fact that the composer was out there just hanging out with a couple of his friends and took photos with anybody that wanted to take a photo with him, sign whatever you brought to him. You don't see that very often, and it was, I don't know, it was just a really cool experience.
Speaking of paparazzi, in my closing thoughts here, I just want to shout out real quick that GameSpot had a really cool pre-show thing that they were doing before the official Game Awards pre-show on their stream for like the first, I want to say 2.5 hours before the actual show started. They were doing a like almost like red carpet event, you could call it, outside of the theater. And they were like doing like trivia games, and people were winning like these giant ass subs, like party subs they were carrying around. And they were doing interviews on stage with different game developers and stuff, and it was really cool to watch. I thought you said you walked past that, right?
Yeah. So, and that's actually my personal favorite moment of this entire thing is when we got there. There was a bunch of people just kind of walking in everywhere. We weren't really quite sure where to go to get in line. And as we were walking around, we both actually walked through an area that was completely blocked off, not for general public, and walked right through like what was a crowd of people, which I did not realize that crowd of people was the affiliates of Hideo Kojima, including Hideo Kojima himself. I bumped into one of his associates. I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and they just kind of looked a little like, I don't want to say annoyed, but like, "What are you doing over here, dude?"
They gave you that Japanese disapproving stare.
Really, honestly, yes, 1,000%.
God, that is so horrifying.
Yeah.
As soon as I got that, I like just did a quick scan of everyone that was there, and because they were all speaking in Japanese. I was like, I don't know anyone. Holy shit, that's Hideo. When
you bumped into Hideo Kojima and you had the nerve to walk in his and walk in his eyesight.
Accident. I didn't mean to at all whatsoever. But I've met a number of different, public figures or celebrities, whether it be by luck, by knowing someone. My wife used to worked as a handler for Comic-Cons for several years.
You also live in California, and celebrities are all over the place out there.
I also live in California. Like that same Game Awards night, they didn't go to it or anything, but Daniel and I went and grabbed a drink at the bar inside of our hotel, and one of a couple that we were talking to, the woman that was there, she was a director. She was a director for the developers of League of Legends and worked on Arcane Season 1. And I'm like, hey,
oh wow,
what the hell is happening? The Hideo Kojima, he and I made eye contact, and I could feel my face turn not pink, not red, full-fledged fucking magenta. I've never metaphorically shit my pants in front of someone that hard ever in my life. And I had to snap myself into it, and I could tell he just kind of chuckled to himself, and I just I was standing around his team, and I'm like, I can't ask for anything, and I don't know if he would understand if I did ask him for something, so I'm just gonna walk away.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, to share, to be within feet of him and to make eye contact. Call me the biggest fanboy on the planet. I don't care. That was my favorite moment of the entire Game Awards. I joke saying I wish it would happen. I didn't think it would actually happen, and it was really cool.
He said,
I was really hoping to get more information on OD for that, but
since Kojima was there, I was hoping for a little something. I don't need to see any more of Death Stranding 2. I'm already sold, but show me more OD.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what OT and Jordan Peele have to do for their gaming slash viewing extravaganza that they've got going on.
Yep. He's like, I breathe the same air as Kojima. I'm never washing these lungs again.
Nope. I'm still holding my breath on Thursday.
Wait, you breathe the same air as Hideo Kojima and Harrison Ford and Snoop Dogg, you know?
So. And okay,
well, breathing the same air as Snoop Dogg has side effects. I'm sure.
I will say one of the funniest things is during the Snoop performance, he was phenomenal. I wasn't expecting him to play a brand new song and also playing an old school song as well.
That part looked like an actual concert. Everyone on their feet and shit, like dancing. So it looked really fun.
So everyone was on their feet, and everyone in like the first like 5 rows were dancing. Everyone else in the crowd, like completely motionless, not moving, not singing along to Gin and Juice, like nothing. And I'm like, this is the saddest cool concert I've ever been to in my entire life.
And
it's like we didn't get to. We're hanging out in the reject center.
Yeah.
I was kind of joking with my wife. I was like, wait, why is Joseph Ferris swearing, but Snoop Dogg is singing a censored version of Gin and Juice, you know?
Yeah.
I was like, when did he become the wholesome one?
Yes. That part though, that part in particular really made the whole thing feel like a party / celebration, and that's what the Game Awards has always been to me. It's not some corporate award show, it's a celebration of video games as art, and a look back at the best the year had to offer. It's a chance for all of these usually segregated brands to come together in unity and celebrate gaming as a whole. And I think no part the entire night stands out more than that besides Snoop Dogg's performance, and when that guy came up, that Amir guy who is creating jobs for people who lost their jobs in the industry, and he got all choked up and teary-eyed and choked me up a little too. Like that, those two moments, they're two sides of the same coin in my opinion.
It was.
And it was weird because I was seeing some of the comments on that and people were calling him cringe. I was like, he's literally saving people's lives.
Yeah. Oh, never read the live comments. Never read the live chat.
I mean, I
tried taking it off, but Twitch wouldn't let me.
Being in that room, I mean, it literally, myself included, it felt like there was not a single dry eye in the house, like listening to his acceptance speech. And I turned over to Daniel after his speech was done, and I'm like, I've done staffing and recruiting and rebuilding people's resumes for years, and I've gotten pretty good at it now. I want to see what I can do to help out this man. Like this is so incredible. I don't care if it's free pro bono work. Like he's doing it for a right cause, and you can feel it in that room. You could absolutely feel like the two most emotional moments was that and the developer for Larian Studios, his speech.
Oh my god,
so good.
That was, I mean, I had chills. I mean, and you want to talk about an absolute uproar from the crowd, from down on the floor all the way up to above us, as soon as he said that these developers and these people that love these games, they're not numbers.
Yep.
I mean, you're talking about like a full-fledged moment that we all shared together of this is not about consumerism. This is about us.
When he said that you should play or you should make the game you want to play.
Yeah.
I was just like, wow.
I have a lot of respect for developers that put artistic integrity before the almighty dollar. Take risks, even if it fails, even if it flops. At least I respect that you had the spine to take a risk instead of playing it safe and doing the same cash grab live service crap over and over again. You know?
Well, that's why I used to really respect Rockstar because, I mean, think about it. Like, Bully took balls to say, we're going to put this out. It's like Manhunt took balls.
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto took balls, and now they're just kind of sitting there going like, well, let's keep updating this live service. It's like, how about no?
That being said, though, the winner of Game of the Year is probably the safest pick they could have gone with overall,
Yeah.
because every other game on that list is flawed in some kind of way. Astrobot was the only flawless game nominated. Like, completely flawless.
And I haven't played Black Myth Wukong, but I do want to because it looks awesome.
Now that did win
But-
the player's choice vote overall, which I can respect.
Yeah.
I don't like Souls-likes, but I can respect it.
I mean, and that's the thing. It's like it. I mean, it is a Souls-like. I like when he says it's not a Souls-like. I understand where he's coming from someone who really enjoys Souls-like and Soulsborne games. Because I honestly like the only category that I was a bit upset about was the best indie game, because I really would have loved to see Another Crab's Treasure be nominated for that. It was such a good game, and it was so funny, and the amount of detail that went into that game. I mean, you're walking on trash. You collect microplastics as a form of currency and to upgrade your skills. And you look at every single thing of trash is like a normal brand that we would recognize, but a pun of it in some form of sea or fish way. And it was so well done. I really wish that they had gotten nominated.
I wanted to see the plucky squire win something in the indie categories. It is very well done. A very unique take on the original Zelda formula, where you're like in a storybook, but then you can jump out into the real world on the desk of the person who's writing the book that you're in, and you actually have to use that to solve puzzles and stuff sometimes. It's really well done. Yeah, that would have been a choice for me that I would have liked to see in the indie category. Personally, well, no, it was in the category, but I would have liked to see it win like best debut indie, I think. But I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised with the overall results, or disappointed or upset. Honestly, I don't think anything won this year that wasn't deserving in some kind of way. Some things I would have picked over others, but I think none of them are controversial wins as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And like, I know there's a lot of, boo-ha-ha about, Black Myth Wukong not getting its flowers for Game of the Year. It just, from playing it didn't feel like a Game of the Year game. It was done well. I did enjoy it. But it also felt like the combat, although very polished, felt very limited. Like you do get a few things, but not to change your fighting style, but not enough to where like this feels like a fully fleshed out game. And I know it's staying true to Sun Wukong, with his staff and fighting style, but to have at least like, you look at a game like, Ghost of Tsushima, where you have several different stances and different fighting styles with each stance, and equally the same with something like Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. You've got different elements, even though you're using only one same weapon the entire time. I would have loved to have seen that from Black Myth Wukong. I thought it was a really good game. I think it was very deserving of like an 8 out of 10 score, but I think it is in that same conversation as something like a Metaphor Refantasio or an Astrobot. For me, I was surprised that it was in that category.
Yeah, that's fair. Although it did win Game of the Year at the Golden Joysticks, which is the British Game Awards.
Yeah,
it did win over there. So, let's see. Closing thoughts on the Game Awards overall here.
I agree with an article that I read from Kotaku saying that while the Game Awards haven't been perfect over the last 10 years, they've never been perfect, but this was probably the best show that they've had in a long time.
I agree. They really brought out all the stops for their 10th anniversary.
And the fact that we talked about earlier, like this was kind of a lackluster year when it came to games, and the Game Awards was able to pull off that kind of a show. That I mean, that really speaks. That's really speaks to not just Jeff, but anybody that really puts their heart and soul into making sure that show happens.
Yeah, I would say a mixture of deserved games winning the awards, self-deprecation humor through the Muppets, poking fun at the wrap it up shit and other internet complaints from last year. So acknowledgement of mistakes and taking it on the chin and kind of rolling with it. Acknowledgement of
Mhm.
the industry's downfalls and pushback against that in the show. So kind of like some mild activism there, you could argue, and then announcements that people genuinely did not see coming, that were like actually major surprises, and a lot
Yeah.
of old franchises making a comeback, not through remakes or remasters, but new entries. Um, so yeah, solid show overall. Like
Yeah.
I
Like
give the whole show a 9 out of 10 this year.
Yeah, and like Jeff even saying, we can argue about, who's to blame for all these layoffs and everything. The fact is they work in the industry and it's hard to, on a show like this to address it and do it in a constructive way. And I really respect how they were able to do that, and especially give that guy the award that he very much deserved for trying to push back against that. And
Yep.
then yeah, with Laren Studios, what was his name? Sven Vinky, I think his name was. I love that you have actually industry insiders saying, okay, this shit's not okay, and they were
Yep.
able to do it on a live audience, in a live studio or live right in front of everybody, so to speak.
Yeah, and that's I think that developers' goodwill with everybody, and even saying stuff like that. That's why they're a developer, that can get away with making a game like Baldur's Gate 3 that can have all of the stuff in it that the anti woke crowd normally bitches about, and have it not be controversial because I guess they give them a pass on it because of speeches like that. um,
Mm-hmm.
which is to say, you shouldn't need an excuse to give a pass on that in the first place, but it is a testament to their quality as a developer overall that even the grifters and the bigots can actually enjoy their work too. you know.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Closing thoughts from those of you out there in the on the shoreline.
Yeah. It's I've watched Game Awards every year since it first started, and getting to celebrate watching The Witcher 3 win the very first game of the year. To get to see 10 years now and get to see it in person. I mean, this is like a literal, like, my kid self dream come true, to be in a room with so many people that are influential to something I've been passionate about since I can literally remember. Um, the performances that were live were incredible. The surprises from having the legend himself, Harrison Ford, come out on stage. Um, a huge emphasis on the humanistic movement of understanding that there are real humans that are a part of this industry, and how important it is you know to have that be the forefront of what they're thinking of, between the Game Changer Award and between Swen from Larian's speech, was incredible. The trailers were great. It was so surprising to see things like Onimusha or Okami 2 or The Witcher 4, or even an Elden Ring, spin-off game. It was, for me, I've got to say, it was a 9.5 out of 10 experience for me. If I got to hug Hideo, it would have been a 10 out of 10 experience, but I was too nervous.
Yeah, for me, this was just an incredible experience from start to finish. I think the show that they put on at the Video Game Awards, it was appropriate for the 10-year anniversary. I think anytime you have the Muppets roasting you, you've made it. And it was great to see them, go from being, sort of a passion project to, like, this is now something that is a staple of entertainment.
Yeah, it's the video game Oscars now. It's come so far.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
really
100%.
is. Um, okay. All
I'm
right.
a long way from his time on Spike TV. You know?
Yeah, and you know what? We don't even talk about that anymore because they don't even consider that, considering they called this the 10th anniversary, which means, according to them, this started in 2014 when Dragon Age Inquisition won Game of the Year.
Well, yeah, isn't that the Video Game Awards? Now it's just called the Game Awards.
That was the first episode of what is now known as the Game Awards, the first time. That was after Spike TV dropped them and Jeff Keighley picked it back up out of pocket, and transitioned it into the Game Awards, and then that was 10 years ago now. Yeah, the Spike TV VGAs came before that. And I do remember them, though, because I remember Telltale's The Walking Dead won Game of the Year on that show one year. So, which I was happy to see. But, all right. So, that has been our... did you have anything else? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I didn't have anything else. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
That was good.
Because they were already about an hour and a half past when I told my wife we'd be done.
Yeah. That's the conversation got way more in depth than I thought it would, but that's fine.
Hey, that's what this show is good. That's the sign of a good show. You know, when nobody can stop talking because it was so interesting.
Yes.